been an interesting time getting to know you.
Oh, I'm learning more about myself as we talk too, which has been fun.
I mean, that's ideal, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We got some of my favorite people on Take Me to Your Leader today. Man, I'm so happy to see y'all here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to just be a part of it.
Yeah, man, we got Coach KJ, Lilith Poe, we got Kat on the pod as well, a Safety Net affiliate. And I'm Greg Jones. Welcome to Take Me to Your Leader.
Yes.
Such a blessing to have you here.
Thank you. I was really excited when you approached me about the project and just interested in helping people learn more about themselves and about mental health, about how to do better for themselves. So I appreciate the opportunity to hang out with you and talk today.
Wow. I honor that. I mean, tell the people a little bit more about where we are. Where am I at?
Yeah, so right now we are in the studio that I teach at. I teach at Lilith in Tacoma, Washington. And the studio is founded by the owner, Alyssa, who basically just has an amazing mission to help cultivate a really unique culture around pole and art specifically. And she has taken her time really creating a vision that is inclusive and healthy and allows people space to have freedom of expression.
Yeah, what's that been like for you to see the people of Pierce County like interact with this space? Because from what I know, this is like relatively new to see it on this scale.
Yeah, that's been really interesting because every part of the community is different in its own way, right? And so you have this really unique group of individuals who are all coming with their own experiences and stories and helping to build this culture. And one thing I'll say about this space and how the community interacts with it is they're really cautious about making sure that their freedoms, their interaction with the world doesn't like limit or inhibit somebody else's able to express and be a part of the community. So it's been interesting because we've had all types of demographics, all ages, all sexualities, all genders, you know, and that is a message that I feel like more businesses are taking into account these days, just for the overall like wellness of what that can do for a community.
The inclusivity. Yeah,
and cultivating diversity, you know, what a boring place it would be here if we all were the same. That's when the real art can start, when we start like showing each other who we are, sharing our stories, and then using dance as a way to do that.
To fuse those narratives.
Yeah.
What was your first impression of this place, Kat? Like, when you first walked in, what did it feel like? What'd you see?
I love that you brought me on. I just wanted to learn more. I think I'm definitely bringing in like a totally different perspective. I can just like feel the energy, and I'm like, ooh, I want to learn more, because it's something that's so out of my element. So first thing that I felt coming in, I was intrigued. I grew up in T-Town, but I haven't been around for the last couple years, so there's not a lot of new hubs in T-Town that I'm just not aware of, and this is one of them. So I came in and I was like, okay, what is this about? I need to do some learning. And
I love that. I love hearing you say that I just want to learn more, you know, and that's often like that's the reaction we get from our students too. But you know, it's really important, I think, to have that thirst and that energy about life in general, just like instead of being like, what is that? Ew.
Yeah.
Oh, what is this thing in the ground? Oh no, you know, being like, what does this thing do?
That genuine curiosity.
What can I do? Yeah. So I love that you said that. It's and that's empowering to like hear both as a coach, and then hopefully to like for you to hear yourself say like, I want to be able to learn more about that.
Yeah, this is like really an empowering space. You know, I nerded out honestly before I even thought about coming to showcase this because I wanted to know, how is this benefiting people in the world? You know, what the research is showing that pole fitness, even recreational pole dancing, is enhancing women's self-efficacy. You know, they're feeling more empowered. Their body image is being boosted just from engaging in this wellness outlet. So I'm finding it to be a tremendous blessing to show ladies and gents of Tacoma and Pierce County what a blessing it is to have a place like this.
Yeah, and pole has been like proven to have benefits other than just the physical aspect. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit before, but I shared with you previously a story of a lady who on Instagram, her handle is at China White Pole, and she is a polar and a mental health provider. And her mission is really to find out how is the brain impacted physically through the experience of polling. And some of the studies that she has conducted have shown improvements of the amygdala, like in people that have suffered severe trauma. And so, you know, aside from the physical aspect, which is clearly obvious, you're using your whole entire body to do this sport.
Yeah.
Now you have this added element of maybe this can be a trauma recovery method for individuals. Maybe,
so
you know,
crazy.
so we're starting to ask those questions and like, yeah, but it's great to see.
With the pole, I'm curious because you were using, you were comparing it with like football. With football, there's like, you have your team players. With you and the pole, it's like, is it you and the pole? Or is it you versus the pole? Like, how do you guys see that?
Ooh, I think that's so individual to the person. I think at first you start off with this mindset that it's you against the pole because you're like, I'm going to take you on. I'm going to climb you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're thinking of it as like something that you have to overcome. And if I've learned anything in life, it's that the more you work with something, the better you do. You know, I learned that very early with being biracial and having curly hair. Like, instead of trying to fight it all the time, let me just work with it in the way that it's supposed to move and work. And I've applied that same thinking to pole and everything else that I've done. And so for me, I'm trying to learn how to work with this apparatus versus against it.
It's so interesting.
Yeah. And there's definitely days where I feel like I'm fighting the pole too, you know, when I'm not doing my best or when I'm struggling to like finish or complete a trick or master a trick. There's definitely times where I feel like I'm fighting it, and I have to take a moment to like sit with that and recognize that I'm actually fighting myself, you know. So it comes back to that like element of self-awareness, being present, and taking time to look within, you know, and pole can offer that.
That's so like such a different perspective. Like I'm soaking it in. I'm like, whoa, okay.
So
the
like,
pole can offer you that.
It's definitely a place of meditation for some people, you know, and it's one of those things that you have to be present with. You know, you can't be on a pole and thinking about what you're going to cook for dinner, because guess what? Like, you're going to lose a point of contact. You're going to come crashing down, you know, or you're not focused on your breathing. And then you can't maintain your stamina because you're not focused on your breathing. So it really brings you to a place of like being centered on what's going on within and around you. We as females, there's very few places that we can explore our bodies, explore sensuality, and explore movement without it being seen as sexual, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a difference between sensual and sexual. And I think that a lot of women have been turned off to the idea of even exploring movement. I have students come in and say, like, I grew up in a super sheltered home with rules about how we could interact with the world in our movement. And so for me, moving on this pole is a way for me to break those like barriers in my life and connect with who I am, not just as a woman, but like as a human. How does my body feel when it moves this way? How does it feel in my soul when I can like run my hands through my hair, touch my hands over my chest, you know? And And does it have to be sexual? Because it doesn't feel sexual all the time. Sometimes it feels sad. Sometimes it feels exciting. Sometimes it feels like I'm anticipating.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that there had to become a point where this became real for you, because even you started somewhere with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what happened that made you be like, yo, I want to be an instructor. This is doing something for me that I want to share with other people. How did that really formulate in you?
It's funny you asked that, because when I was offered the opportunity to be an instructor, I literally didn't think I was ready at all. I was like, what? No, I can't teach other people. So it wasn't until after I had already become an instructor that I felt, wow, I'm offered this opportunity. What am I going to do with it? You know, I've always been passionate about dance. I've always been passionate about movement, done it my whole life. And anybody that you meet that's known me for a long time will tell you that I've always been like a performer. You know, I've always wanted to perform. So when I grew up and I didn't have access to a dance community as an adult, I was like, what am I supposed to do? I was depressed. I was constantly battling with just like anxiety, and I didn't like any other form of exercise except lifting weights, but I was so sick of it because I did it so much when I was in the military. You know, and I was trying to like get out of this routine of just repeating the cycle that I was taught in that job. So it got to a point where I had this pole in my house, and I was like, I've had this thing sitting here for years. When am I gonna when am I gonna actually try doing stuff?
I love that.
Yeah. And
did you bring it there, or was it there?
Somebody bought my first pole for me as a gift. And it showed up on my doorstep, and I don't know who bought it for me till this day.
Whoa.
So what a
Trippy.
What a gift from like the heavens above, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, I explored with it quite often around the house and just like dinking around, and you go up to it and you jump on it and you hold on for dear life, and then eventually one day, I think it was during COVID, I was just like, I'm actually either going to decide to get rid of this or start messing around and really do something. And so I started teaching myself how to do things here and there, and then a little while after that, I went on a trip to Mexico, and I basically had this revelation that I wanted to leave my government job. And as soon as I got back from my job, or from my vacation, I ended up actually getting fired from the job.
Whoa.
It was so crazy. And so I was like, well, I guess this is a sign to start like doing what I want to do. And so I took a lot of time off. I called my mom, and I told my mom, well, I ended up leaving before I got fired, but I was getting ready to get fired. I told my mom, like, I'm going to leave this job. She goes, what are you going to do? And I said, I think I'm just going to do whatever I want. She was like, well, where are you going to start? Like, I think I want to be a stripper.
Nice. And before you get off into that story, I want everybody to hit the like button, because what that's going to do is show more people in this community what's really possible, what's available, and increase the likelihood of people being able to enhance their own wellness. And we'll be right back after these messages. Been feeling depressed? Have you tried one or more antidepressants and you're still feeling down? You could potentially be set free through Ketamine-Assisted group therapy at SafetyNet. Yes, sessions will be held at SafetyNet, Washington's first peer respite in Tacoma, Washington. If you're interested in this resource, fill out the form in the description box and we'll keep you updated on enrollment. See you later, bro. Hey, hug me.
Holding my hand from the start to the end. I know that I can't rely on you. We lift your name. We give you all the praise.
Is that a payphone?
No, Dad, it's a payphone.
Phone home with pray phone. Phone home with pray phone.
Phone home with Pray Phone. Now accepting fiscal sponsors and prayer donations for collection number 1.
This kind of reminds me of like yoga and just like being one with the mat. Like, I don't know, I keep going back to that. I'm like, oh, okay, yoga.
Yeah, it's funny you say that too, because my partner does yoga and he is an incredible instructor. And
Shout out Trev.
Right, right. And I mean, like, we definitely compare similarities between pole and yoga all the time. It's been really interesting to see how learning from him, especially the value of learning to control your breath, practicing breath work, like how important that can be in this too, because just like yoga can be meditative, this can as well. You know, and really, like, really any sport, any practice can be, if you choose to make it that way, if you have intention behind it in that way.
I feel like if it connects with you in that way.
Yeah, I mean, some people are in a screamo band, and that for them feels like so cathartic, and just like bringing them back to center. And I'm like, that's good for you, you know. So if that works for you, do that thing, you know.
Yeah, I might pull up on the screamo band if somebody in the screamo band watching this. And you're in Pierce County, and y'all been, you know, really letting it loose and figuring yourselves out with what you're doing. Get at me. I'll pull up. We'll do a podcast. Take me to your leader.
I would love to see that.
Yeah. So you were saying before the break that you started to hear the rustling of the morning stars as you were in the military, and you said, you know what, I got to do something else.
Yeah, I was working. I had just actually left not too long before from the military, and I was working as a federal civilian doing communication and public affairs.
Nice.
And that was fun. It taught me a lot about what I wanted to do with my degree, which is in communication, concentration in public affairs. And after a while it was too repetitive, you know. And I told you, like, I'm a performer. I need to be in the light. People need to, like, see me do things, whatever it is. And it sounds so narcissistic, but it's not about me, or like, it's not about what I can do. It's about connecting, right?
That's how you connect to people.
And being able to share with them, you know.
It's an offering.
It is. It's like, here's a piece of me. I hope you enjoy it.
Man.
If you hate it, fine, but maybe, like, just be nice about it, you know? And so, it started feeling too tedious, too monotonous, and I went on a trip. And right before I went on my trip, my job asked, can we have your computer? We need to update your computer. I said, oh, sure, okay. And then, like, I knew in the back of my head, I'm like, they're not being honest, because we work on computers that aren't on the network. And came back, and they were like, my boss goes, hey, I need to talk to you. I said, okay. She goes, remember when you asked me if you could, like, log into your iTunes and listen to music? I said, yeah. You told me I could. She said, yeah, but I accidentally logged in your whole iCloud account.
So how was that your fault?
And
what I got to do with anything? So
the problem with that is that when your whole iCloud account is logged into a device, all of your history that's attached to your cloud, all of your photos, all of your files, everything are now on that device. And I am also at that time an OnlyFans creator.
Nice.
Which my job knew about. They had no problem with me being an OnlyFans creator. But when they found it on government property, they're like, now we can't tell the difference between what you're doing in your private time and what you're doing in your work time. So now we have to investigate you for misuse of government property. And I'm like, I worked so hard for this job. Even though I wanted to leave, I didn't want to leave this way. So So I tell my boss, I'm like, if I just leave, do I maintain my ability for rehire? And she goes, sure. I'm like, y'all just want me gone. It's fine. You just had to say it. I don't want to be anywhere I don't feel like I'm wanted, you know.
Go where you're celebrated, not just tolerated.
Yes. Again, shout out, Trev.
Yeah. You've done a lot of advocacy for women in sex work.
100%.
Yeah. Your advocacy for women in sex work, doing a very sensual sport activity. Do you ever see spiritual overlap?
Absolutely. In many ways. I see it overlap in terms of conflict, and I also see it overlap in terms of coexisting very well together.
Could you explore that?
Yeah. So as far as conflict, I have plenty of students who come in and they have this conflict of their like inner self feeling awkward or afraid or ashamed to be able to move their body.
This is like students within the class.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And not knowing or feeling comfortable all the time, being able to have the freedom to move however they choose, because movement outside of a sidestep or clapping your hands was seen as like overly sexual in their households growing up. So for some people, it can be conflicting in that way. They're not sure how to handle the freedom to move their body however they want. And then in other people, I see it coexisting in terms of it unlocking this like sense of holy, like spiritual divine connection within them, you know, and wherever they're pulling that source of divinity from, whether it's Christianity, Buddhism, whatever they choose to identify as far as a belief system, they're really reaching not out here, but in and finding that
from within.
And they're connecting to whatever God or spirit or divine energy is within them.
What does that sound like to you?
Oh man, I'm like, I just like have all these thoughts that are just like
I know
forming, because this is like a whole new world for me. I haven't like explored a ton, like, so I mean your world is like very much so new to me, but man, where do I want to go with this?
it's up to you.
What does this mean to me?
What does it feel like?
I've never heard anyone say like, oh, they're able to tap into the divine through this, like whether it be like Buddhism, whether it be Christianity, whether it be, you know, so I've just never heard the two connected, and I'm like, oh, tell me more.
Yeah.
Have you seen it in yoga?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So that's like kind of how I like equate it.
It's good
Some
analogy.
people have a really spiritual connection to yoga. Is there any form of movement that you're super passionate about, or sport?
Yeah, I mean, yoga, Pilates.
So like any of those things, like when you feel that sense of empowerment, when you feel like you're pushing your limits and still achieving more than you probably have achieved, that, like, for me and for plenty of other people, I don't know, maybe for you too, like those are the moments when I feel that connection at its strongest. You know, like I'm literally pushing my body to its last fiber. And in this moment, even if I don't accomplish whatever trick or move I'm trying to do, my body spiritually feels elevated to a whole nother degree.
So this is how your body connects to the spiritual aspect of you, who you are.
Yeah, in some ways, for sure.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because as I was reading the data about pole fitness,
Oh, I'd love to hear.
there's market enhancements being shown in women's perceived capabilities.
What do you explain more about that?
Like, through their accomplishments traversing the challenges of pole, many women have started to believe within themselves that they're capable of more.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you what, when I freaking popped up on this thing, it did my first invert, and I could like lift my body, my hips above my head for the first time using my core. I was like, I'm gonna get a 6-pack, bro. And when I saw myself get a 6-pack, I was like, once I get a 6-pack, I can hurl people over a car if I really want. I don't even care. Nobody's gonna tell me that I can't.
Yeah.
You know, and then it births these. I mean, and that's like an exaggeration, right? But like it births all these concepts of like, if I can do this, maybe I can do this.
Okay, I can relate now that, you know, we're using other examples. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I just not too long ago I did a 21 mile. I did the Enchantments 21 miles and like
Cool.
Congratulations.
it was like 12 hours.
Congratulations.
And at the end we had to make it down before nightfall, or else you were just screwed.
Right.
And then a lot of folks would like camp out and like just take their time.
Whoa.
We weren't there. We didn't have that pleasure. And I remember coming down. I'm like, how much longer? And I'm lying to myself, telling myself like, oh, it's just another 3 hours, knowing that like it's another 6 hours and my feet are like, I'm done. Like mentally, I'm out. I'm gone. But my body's just like, no, we got the, like, there's no way. Like, this is all you have is the road in front of you, and like you got to make it down. And then by the time we came down, it was like just a couple minutes after dark, and I'm thinking, holy crap, I just accomplished this. Like, I just did this. If I can do this, I can do anything.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's one thing to like say that to yourself, and it's one thing to like feel it and like know it within you.
I think it's with physical accomplishments, it feels so much more tangible, right? So like when we accomplish a goal in our life, like we get through college or we get the job we always wanted, any of those things, those feel like things that are great accomplishments and we should be doing, versus doing a 22-mile hike or being able to do your first Aisha on the pole and being like, I don't have to do it, but holy fuck, I could do this thing.
Took it there.
And I really did. And I like did that all by myself. And that is another huge thing that I think a lot of people miss out on, is like in your career or your life goals, as far as like the steps that you take, you know, you do the work on your own. And there's so many things that contribute to that success that you don't always feel like you did it. But when it's your body, nobody else can move your body for you.
Yeah.
You know, nobody else can move your feet left, right, left as you're going down that path. And nobody else can like take my hips and use my core to lift my hips above my head. So like having that physical aspect of, I really did this thing truly on my own, it feels like it can actually like be tangible and connect. And I think that's another huge part of that confidence boost for women, because not only do we recognize we could do it all on our own, but like we are freaking physically strong if we want to be, you know.
Yeah, it sounds super inspiring, and the physical health benefits are obviously pertinent.
Yeah, I've definitely used this as a way to like generate and manifest as much physical health as I can, you know.
So you're like taking care of yourself.
Yeah, and like managing illness, managing, you know, just like the overall pains of getting older, and feeling healthier than I've ever felt, you know. And that's yeah.
So happy to hear that for you. I love that for you.
And that's the case, like not just for me though, for all the people that come into contact with this, you know. Everyone's going to try it the first time and be bad.
Yeah.
You know, I expect you to come in here and fail your first time at doing some of these things. The only thing that I expect my students to do the first time is be open-minded and understand that the difference between me and them is time and effort. It's even more powerful to see that in Black women, you know, and see like this community of individuals who has been marginalized even more so than others in many ways now has this ability to like showcase strength, power, femininity, sensuality.
Yeah, shout out to Magic City in Atlanta.
Heck yeah. Yeah. And, you know, like,
they're like Cirque du Soleil in there.
for real. And I see these girls out here doing some of these things, and I'm like, girl, you could be doing a backflip to a handstand and landing in a split on a lollipop.
I gotta see this for myself.
And I'll be like, go ahead, take my money, because that is just like,
that's work.
that's like watching freaking, what is his name that does magic, David Blaine?
Oh yeah.
You know, seeing him do like some crazy thing, and you're like, how is it even possible? You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, for sure.
your wildest dreams can come true in the club.
Y'all do some of that stuff in here. I mean, you got to check out her Instagram.
Yeah.
Oh, I will after
they're
this.
doing some pretty interesting things in here. I mean, 2 people on a pole, all different types of
2
body.
people.
Yeah, they're doing all
2,
type of stuff.
3. Shout out to my pole partners.
Yeah, shout them out.
Adrian and Manaya and Alyssa too. You know, we definitely get down on some doubles and triples action. We like to do, Ari and I say, we like to do double stuff.
Hey,
You know?
it's fly. Y'all are killing it.
Yeah. It's really unique to see people do these amazing things and have their own interpretation of what that looks like, right? Because how I dance on the pole is going to be very different from how Adrian or Manaya dances on the pole, or Alyssa, you know.
If I'm not mistaken, these individuals teach here as well.
Yes, so all of those individuals are coaches. Alyssa's the owner, and then Adrian and Manaya are both coaches here as well.
So it's a variety of experiences that you guys can get in this place.
Yeah, and like that's the whole point that we want to bring home here as a studio. One thing that Paul, one of the owners, really stresses is the ability to grow and thrive through building others up, and like really taking the skills and abilities of each individual around you and like honing in on those skills so you all can be great as a collective. So and that's like, that's powerful, man, because that shows for the greater good of a community, not just an individual, that you're willing to bring everybody up with you. You know, there's multiple aspects and areas of pole. There's the more sensual side, there's the strip club side, there's the pole fitness side, there's the people who want to use it to like spice up just their sex life a little bit, you know, which again is like different from the sensual side, I want to say and point that out. And you have to be intentional about what communities you align with and how you align with them. You know, working in the strip club, like, I'm so glad that I knew who I was before I started doing that. You know, I'll be 30 in March, and I'm glad that I went through my phase of like not being certain of who I was before I did this, because it can definitely be there is definitely opportunity to make poor choices in the club. And when people are giving you these exorbitant amounts of money, if you don't know who you are and who your boundaries are, it very quickly turns from something that's empowering and helping you build self-confidence to something that is now robbing you of your energy and your willingness to like keep boundaries for yourself. So while I like definitely want to recognize the amount of benefit that can come, I also want to take it back and saying that 100% of that comes from being willing to work on you as an individual, being willing to self-analyze and be self-aware and know your boundaries. And all of those things come from working on mental and physical, like, health and growth, you know.
Absolutely. And sexual health is a thing.
Yeah.
And when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, sex is in the bottom tier.
Yeah.
You know?
I also want people to understand that while this can be like a very sexual and vulnerable and intimate thing, there is a fine line of when it is and when it isn't.
Yeah.
And both are okay. And that's why, like, if you have a partner that's exploring this or you're curious about this, I really suggest you take time to think about, what do you want out of this? You know, if it's to get in touch with that sensual and intimate side of yourself, what parts are you hoping to explore or unlock? Ask yourself those questions, because you won't figure them out by just dinking around and walking around the pole.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you'll figure it out by making that time to intentionally explore those things. And if you start with a little bit of intention, the rest will kind of unfold. You don't need to like do it with a like line, an outline every step of the way. But
I love how you kind of talked about like the different elements to it, and it's like it is whatever you want it to be. Because I mean, for me, I think that there's some things that like I'm like, yes, like I could tap into that way of like doing things, and then I'm like, oh, absolutely no, like that just doesn't relate to me at all, or like my way of living. But yeah, I just love that you tapped into the different elements, and I'm like, I'm gonna do some more exploring in that avenue right there.
What are the elements that are resonating with you? I'm just curious.
I think the biggest one for me is sport. Because she's like, you're using all of your body, and the way that it just empowers you, I'm like, oh, that's so fascinating. Like, I want to experience that.
That's like, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And I think it's always, I always feel like I'm like watching kids in a candy store when they start talking about what they can get out of it, because it really is whatever you make of it, you know. And if you come here and you're like, I'm interested in learning how to be more powerful with my body, that's what you're going to come in here and focus on, you know. And of course, as a coach, it's our job to help you do that in like a safe way, and a way that is like at your level of progression. We're not going to be like, cool, hop up in a handstand right now, you know. I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to start off with like, okay, let's just find out like if we feel comfortable putting weight into our hands, and like, you know, like learning how to engage the tips of our fingers. We're going to start slow, but we definitely want people to have that opportunity to see their own strength, their own power, their own gifts. And
I would also, side note, I was just like, my thoughts were just forming up, because you were like, well, a lot of folks come in, they feel like they've lost sort of like their sense of the connection with self and their sexuality, or because of maybe something that happened to them, and they were kind of like, oh, like I don't, and through time they kind of disengaged from that, and they come here and they're able to kind of spark that connection again. I'm curious if that would be something that I could, like, if that would be something that, like, I don't know, I would be able to like tap into more, but without making it about sex. So I'm like, that part I just don't, I think I'm more conservative in that sense, where I'm like, I don't want to display myself in that way to an audience. It doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like I choose to express myself in that way, like very differently maybe. But I'm like, ooh, I wonder if I could tap into that part of me and connect, and maybe there's something there. Like, can I?
I think like at minimum, learning how to feel confident touching the pole and like interacting with the pole will help anybody feel more confident in their sensual energy. Because first of all, this apparatus, like when people see it, they automatically start thinking about the sensual nature of it, and what it, like the sensual potential that it has. And like if you can just feel comfortable moving around it, then you'll feel more comfortable exploring how to move your body around it. And if you can feel more comfortable exploring movement in your body, you can find ways that feel good in your body to move. And you can correlate that to not just dance, but yoga and sex too. Like if I feel comfortable and sexy moving this way when I'm practicing yoga, maybe it also looks comfortable, and maybe it's also comfortable and sexy when I'm in the bed. At its very base minimum, pole is going to hopefully teach you how to connect with your breathing more, which
it's so
can help you really come into like sensual energy in a very powerful way that isn't sexual too. you know, and just like getting in touch with that energy can come from just learning how to focus on breathing.
Like, who would have thought?
Confidence is a huge tool to be able to utilize in unlocking sensual energy and or sexual energy. So.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you paint it that way, because these different emotions and inherent strengths we have, they have their gateways.
Yeah.
And unlocking these doors is a very individualized journey.
And it's very vulnerable for some people, and that's why, and like, yeah, it's very vulnerable for people. And so moving in this way, not just allowing people to see you potentially fail, but also understanding that it could have some sort of emotional response to it. That is something that
that's what I'm interested about, because like within yoga, if you're going through trauma, sometimes you don't even know where the trauma is, like where the trauma lies, or what exactly it is that you're going through, but you'll connect with the movement and all of a sudden you're on the mat and you're crying.
Yes.
Like I've had that happen a couple of times. I'm like, whoa, like what
100%.
was that? So that's, I think, what I was trying to ask you, but I was all over the place. And I was like, okay, how do I form this? But that's essentially what I was getting to. I was like, has it, like, can you experience that?
Yes. And that's another reason why I feel and say that you can touch and tap into that very spiritual side of yourself, because some of those emotions are connected to like really deep spiritual parts of you, or parts of you that are healing, parts of you that are, so real quick, can I go on like a little bit of a tangent?
The
Please
seat
do.
of your emotions.
Yes. Yeah. And what you're saying like really resonates with me, because I definitely use pole as a way to heal from trauma. So just going back a little bit in my experiences and who I am, and things that have impacted me. When I graduated from basic training, the next day my brother and sister passed away in like a car accident that killed them. And you know, even though it's been so long, that happened in 2012, it's been over 10 years, like I still obviously feel a very deep connection to both of these people. I loved them. And then you fast forward a few years later, and I was a victim of sexual assault, and I had been raped. And I have been raped twice in my life. The first time was by a complete stranger, and the second time was by 4 individuals. I'm sorry, I should have like mentioned a trigger warning, so I apologize.
It's fine. Be yourself. Yeah. We have difficult conversations in the mental health domain.
Yeah, and I just like also want to preface this by saying, like, if you're somebody who has suffered that, please find a way to heal from that that's healthy and productive for you, and an outlet that's healthy for you. But for me, for a while, I didn't have that opportunity to heal from that in the ways that I needed to. And when I started polling, part of the reason I started was not just because I wanted to start doing whatever I wanted, but I had also realized that because of this trauma that I had suffered and these negative experiences surrounding sexuality and sex, I didn't know the type of person that I wanted to be as a sexual partner anymore. And it greatly impacted my last marriage, to the point where I didn't even know how to enjoy sex with my partner anymore, because the things that I had enjoyed previous to my assault reminded me too much of my assault.
Wow.
You know, I was one of those people, and like have been in my romantic life, who enjoyed like being a little bit more submissive as a female. But then after my trauma, I didn't feel comfortable doing that because it reminded me too much of the trauma. And so when I started polling, I realized like I can find ways to feel sensual energy that feels comfortable and confident, and learning how to feel comfortable in the sensual energy that I bring to life, that I create, can provide a safe space for me to then feel comfortable exploring sexuality with somebody else.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Because
it's a
I'm
lot.
sure a lot of people are going to be really inspired and encouraged by your vulnerability.
I'm happy to share like that experience, and definitely while both of those things are hard, like losing somebody, assault, all of those things are difficult, it's worth having conversations about if they can help somebody else, and if other people can see that on the other side of those things is the healthiest version of you that you've ever been.
You're talking like a peer counselor, KJ. You might need to come over to safety net, show some love to the community.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of just strength to be able to talk so freely about that.
I have had a lot of therapy, thankfully, which I've been grateful for that opportunity too. And that's where it starts. Like, that's where the real work starts, is like, maybe you're not willing to talk to somebody yet, but be willing to sit with yourself and ask yourself the questions: what do I need to heal? What things am I afraid of healing from? And kind of starting with those questions. They make you to the point of being willing to talk to somebody else and work through those things, because nothing is like more of a barrier in your life than your own hang-ups. No matter what other people do to hold you back, to keep you from being successful, they can only stop you as much as you allow them, and you'll stop yourself more by getting caught in a really unhealthy mental cycle and mental trap. So, yeah. Look at that. Are we out of time?
No.
Okay.
So, until I get a camera crew, I have to time my Sony A6500 and reset the recording so that it doesn't cut off and we miss all these magical moments. So a big part of making sure this pod has all the angles it needs is Greg Jones getting up to check these cameras here and there until we get that media team popping. But man, it's fun to just do this and make it as artful as possible, and make sure that we are able to give you guys the experience we believe you deserve as viewers of Take Me to Your Leader.
Yeah. I hope that happens for you soon. Maybe there's going to be a sick media team out in the world that's willing to volunteer some time and energy for this mission.
It would be cute, but I'm going to be honest.
Nobody does it better than Greg Jones.
I guess maybe that's a part of it. But what I would say, nobody cares about your stuff as much as you do.
100%.
And it's like, I have a certain taste level. I like things a certain way, and don't really want people who are just renting themselves out. I like people who are really passionate about making good stuff.
Yeah.
Quality stuff. Are you really in it for, the reward of mastery? Because if you are, you can hang with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
So, in spirit of mastery, we both know that there's a certain amount of effort and time that people have to invest to get there. But we all have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, there may be a young lady like you who has a pole in her house. She doesn't necessarily know what to do. Do you have anything that you could orient her with tonight that she could try and start in her room on her pole?
Are you asking for like a specific move, or just like a direction to point somebody in if they're looking for like a safe place to explore pole at home?
It's up to you. You can tell us a move. You can give a quick demo. You can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah. So first I'm going to give a resource that I think is super powerful. I think anybody who's considering pole should look into the pole physio. She is an extremely talented physical therapist that specializes in the body mechanics around pole.
We're going to put these links in the bio, links to articles, links to everybody she's talking about. Do your thing.
Yeah. And she has a ton of resources, blogs, how-to videos, a wonderful portfolio on her Instagram of how to properly condition the body and how to properly use the body for different tricks, and the conditioning that you'll need to like be prepared for those. So the first thing that I would say to anybody that is considering pole is definitely check out that resource, because it will help you and save you a lot of time and energy and potentially save your body from injury. The second thing that I would tell people is to just put on music that makes them feel at peace or evokes an emotional like response, and sit, stand, be next to your pole in some way and allow that music to like move you in a way where you feel like you're working with this pole.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care if you know what you're doing or not. You could literally be doing the worm next to this thing. But if that feels good for your body, get up and move around and do that first.
Nice.
And the more you feel connected to this, the more you feel like whatever you're doing is evoking positive emotion, the more you'll be curious about doing it better. And then that's where we come into a point where we're like, okay, now I'm ready to learn the technical side of it.
The curiosity.
But you have to be willing to be curious about it and be comfortable being silly, because you're not going to look good your first few times, you know, more than likely.
Yeah, that vulnerability factor sounds like such a growth opportunity.
It definitely is. And it's very humbling for people, you know, and especially because the growth also comes with physical pain, you know. That's why most people get a little like worried about sports or physical. They're like, I don't want to hurt. But like, you're going to hurt in life no matter what you do. Why not have control over what hurts, when it hurts, how it hurts, you know? So yeah, those are the two like main pieces of advice that I would give.
Amen. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Did you have any other questions? This pod has been awesome.
Yeah. I think my mind's still like swimming in the little seas that I've created, where she like talks about your story just like really resonated with me, trauma, and then that, and using like the pole as a form of like, I don't know, therapy or whatever you want to call it.
Definitely can be like cathartic a little.
I'm like, I gotta look into this. Like, this is fascinating.
Post-traumatic processing and self-exploration.
Yeah. I feel like it's only right that I do like a little demonstration of kind of like how I connect and what I do.
Hey,
and
what's
like
up?
I feel like we can't end this podcast in a pole studio without me like getting on the pole. So, and also because I'm just like trying to find any reason to dance.
Yeah, why not? Let's do something.
Yeah.
And we'll record it. We'll pull the gimbal out.
Yeah, you're a performer, so you're gonna thrive.
Yeah, you're gonna
we'll
do your
see.
thing.
I'm gonna take these shoes off and get
All right.
situated. Okay.
All right.
I'm sipping away my tea, about to watch a dance.
Find a song that kind of like resonates or that I'm really feeling at the time. And I think about the energy that song like gives me. And this song is kind of like mysterious, dark, strong. And so I kind of like think of how I can connect with that. And then as I build my arsenal of tricks, I start to think about how I can use those and not move too fast. Take our time we take our time so that every single movement can be done intentionally. And with the right technique. And when you're done, you find the easiest way to slow down and come to a stop without making it look like you are trying to save your last breath. So yeah, that's how I connect.